So, hi again, everybody. This is our second webinar on our Survive and Thrive group. Today, we're focusing on the HR implications of COVID-19, and I'm delighted to have Olga Crosse with me. Olga is a really experienced HR consultant who I've been lucky to have worked with for quite a few years now. And she's going to be talking through all the various different implications and how COVID-19 is impacting businesses. So I'll just a quick introduction to myself. So my name's Mike Pye. I'm a marketing consultant based in Manchester, running a business called MP&Co. We help typically fast growth B2B businesses develop their marketing strategies and then connect them with an elite team to help them implement it. And I'll just skip over to Olga and she can introduce herself and share a bit about her background.
Hi, I'm Olga Crosse and I run my own boutique HR consultancy in London, but I've lots of clients all over the UK. And basically what I do is I help entrepreneurs, startups, small to medium sized businesses, including social enterprise, with their HR and people needs. So instead of hiring a full-time HR person, you will hire me and my team, and we'll provide an outsourced HR consultancy for yourself. Very hands-on, very bespoke, and we are very we like to wrap our clients around with a lot of love. I've been doing it for a long time. Not a lot I haven't heard or seen, but I haven't seen this. So I don't think any of us have, and I hope we never will. Yeah. So major panic stations have been very busy, phone ringing off the hook, but there is a lot we can do. And I did read reports today. It probably mightn't last for very long at all, which is really good news. So great stuff. Strange times indeed we're in, absolutely. Mike. Strange times. Absolutely.
I imagine it's keeping you very busy.
It is, and people are genuinely worried, they're panicking. But thankfully, what happened on Friday with the Chancellor's announcement, it's given a lot more assurity to people. People were losing their businesses Friday morning. Late Friday evening, they were like, oh, we have a lifeline, we have a lifeline. Yes. Nobody wants to lose their staff. Nobody wants this. Nobody wanted any of this. Yeah. So, and that's been great. And it's just, how do we cope with what's going on, basically? And that's been hard because none of us, this is uncharted waters. We just never encountered this before. So normal business sense, etc., I think has been suspended. And that seems to be the general theme.
Yeah, I think from my perspective and from all the people sort of within my network, we've gone through a period of a week, 10 days of absolute panic and chaos and fear. And like you say, I think as time's gone on, as announcements have come, and we've kind of got our heads around it a little bit, it's now a case of planning for the new normal and then looking at how we can come out stronger the other side. So it seems to be a bit more energy and a bit more enthusiasm this week from the conversation I've had with people.
I've totally noticed that. Even especially with the announcement on Friday. So we come in Monday and there's hope again. People are actually planning for when all this silliness is over. And, everyone's kind of mobilising, getting together, trying to do things kind of behind the scenes. Yeah. This is what we'll do when we're over this. And a lot more optimism. People aren't shutting up shop like I thought they were going to. And they thought they were going to. So, there is a general air of optimism out there. And it's weird because people have accepted it, and the big thing about the layoff was everybody was worried that the employees wouldn't accept it, but they actually have. And I think fair play to all of them. It's going to affect them, and their finances and what have you. But everyone's been quite good and understanding about it in the main. Nobody's actually created that much trouble, which is quite unusual in my line of business. But thankfully we're all in this together. So. Absolutely. And I would like to think that will go on after this, but who knows?
Yeah. Hopefully. Should we crack on then and go through some of the information that you've put together?
Yeah. And it's really quick, and it's just just basically dealing with this, because normal in the HR and legal world, I think normal business has been suspended, to be perfectly honest. So how we deal with all of this normally is not really how we're dealing with it now. and we will go back to normal. So this won't continue either. So
sure. Okay, then practical steps to handle the current crisis.
So practical steps. I mean, firstly, there's 3 types, as I see it, of people who are going to be sick or not coming to work. So the first lot are very easy to deal with. I've actually got the virus, or I've got a cold, I've got the sniffles, I feel terrible, I'm going to have to stay at home. Fine, that's fine. Your normal sick rules apply. And actually, weirdly, these are the easiest people to deal with in some respects, because they've got it or something, they have to stay at home. You can pay them the sick pay. If you've got occupational sick pay, pay according to that. Or if you just are SSP, you can pay from day 1, 14 days, and you get that back as an employer. And, you know, people are coming back after about 10 days, they're tending to come back. So the people who've had it are coming back into the workplace now. So, and they're usually out for about 10 days. So that's one group. And they're, as I said, that's quite easy to deal with. You're supposed to get a fit note from them, and they can now apply to the NHS for the fit notes. So you go online to 111.nhs.uk, and I think I have it on the slide deck, and they'll issue you with a fit note, hopefully, if they're not too inundated. But you know, as I said, normal business has been suspended in this case. But you know,
staff won't have to get a sick note from the doctor to claim that sick pay.
They should. And normally they should do, but you know, they've got to try and get the fit note. But you know, if you're sick, the NHS can't cope with it. They haven't sent you fit note. What can you do? So the employer can put in the returns that, you know, they've been sick for the 14 days and try and get the SSP back. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Second group are the people who have to self-isolate because somebody in the house has it, like your flatmate or your wife or your child or parent or something like that. Again, same rules apply. They have to self-isolate. But weirdly, they've got to self-isolate for 14 days. So if you've got it, people are tending to come back earlier than if you actually have to self-isolate because someone in the house has it. And then bearing in mind, you might actually get it at that point. So then you have to self-isolate for another 7 days. But again, that's the same principle. Occupational sick pay applies, or SSP, and SSP can be paid for up to 28 days or 28 weeks. The first 14 days, the government will give you back. So that's that second group. Now, the next group, which is trickier, are the people who want to self-isolate. So they want to do it. What do? They're nervous, they want to do it. So in general, if you can give them work and they can do it, meaningful work, they do it and they get paid. Okay. If they don't want to, which we are getting, well, then that's unpaid. I'm sorry, but it's unpaid. You don't have a family member, you're not being forced to self-isolate, and you're not sick. So, and if you don't want to do the work, you don't get paid for it. So that's that. In general, though, if they can do some work, I'd come to some arrangement with them, to be perfectly honest. And I think at this stage, people are worried about their jobs, so they're more inclined to want to be paid for it, if that makes sense. So, but it's also sitting down and talking to them. I have had people who are outrightly refusing to come to work and saying, I'm not going in, and that's it. Well, then they don't get paid. Harsh, but true.
Yeah.
You know, and if they can do a bit of work at all, I mean, you know, Zoom is great. I've just discovered it. I love it. There's Skype. You know, there's loads of things we could all be doing. I think that, you know, you can do something. So they're the kind of 3 categories of people who are affected or with the actual virus. And then, so that's how you deal with those, basically.
So, do you think some companies, I suppose, do you think there's a risk that some companies may take advantage of the fact that they're furloughing staff but still getting them to do stuff sort of on the sly, or on the flip side, furloughing staff, but they actually do need
Sorry, Mike, I didn't hear you there.
Sorry. So do you think that, you know, there'll be the risk of some companies continuing to get their staff to work even though they've furloughed them?
Okay, yeah, I need to get onto the furlough bit. So the next option to employers is furlough, and that means that they just don't have any work for them to do at all.
Yeah.
And that's what that means. There is no work for you to do.
Yeah.
You're not being redundant, but A very, very good example of where a furlough employee would kind of come into play would be a pub or a restaurant. We've got to shut. We rely on cash to keep our business going. People have to come through the door in order to get people paid and keep the business going. They're not coming through the door. How can I keep my business going? Well, the answer is you can't, because the means with which you earn your money is gone. People aren't allowed to go into your bar or restaurant, and you've been forced to shut. So those staff are genuinely, absolutely furloughed. And if you haven't furloughed them now. So, and you can backdate it to the very first day you furloughed them. And what that means is that they're still employed, and people think the furlough is like making them redundant. It isn't. They're still employed. It's just that you can't pay them. However, the government has stepped in and said, well, we'll actually pay 80% of their salary, or up to £2,500 a month. So we'll help you out on that. Furlough staff should not be working. You can't get them to do bits and bobs behind the scenes, because that's the whole point of it. They're not working, and you can't offer them. So I've asked this question a lot. In fact, it's the most asked question out there. Can I get them to work for 2 days and then furlough them for 3, say, for instance? And the answer to that is really unclear, because there's very little guidance out there for the coronavirus retention scheme, as it's officially called. Technically, you should be able to pay people who don't work on specific days that they would do normally. But as I said to you earlier, Mike, if I lined 10 lawyers up against the wall and asked them about the furlough question, the part-time, can they work 2 days and not 3, they'd probably all give me a different answer. So the guidance is very unclear on that. But technically, if they're supposed to work 5 days a week and you have furloughed them for 3, technically they should, paid for that from the government grant. But again, be cautious about that in case the government change their mind, or they actually issue guidelines which completely and utterly wipes that out of the water. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does, yeah.
So it is a big question. A lot of staff or a lot of people do want their staff to work 1 or 2 days a week in a rota. So they might get them, and that tends to be food delivery places, call centres, that sort of thing. They want to keep them doing something, but of course they can't pay them for, their normal salary. So I would hope that the government would show some understanding on that, because at least they're not demanding the whole 100% of the grant that's out there. They're only asking for half or bits of it, a partial payment, and it's actually still keeping people engaged in the workforce, which is really important.
Yeah.
I would hope that the government and whoever's drawing up these plans would show some understanding in that it's nearly better to get people to do even a little bit than nothing at all. Yeah. But if you are going to work on that basis, make sure it's over a day. So don't furlough somebody for part of a day. If you're going to get them to work, do it for 1 day, 2 days, whole days, and pay them, and make sure you have the money to pay them, because you are not going to be able to claim that grant for those days you're getting them to work. You may not be able to claim that grant at all if you get them to do that, but we have to wait for the government to come out with that guidance.
Sure. Great. Okay.
So it's very up in the air, but it's a very good thing, and I'm really glad they've done it. And I think the thinking is an awful lot of people, if they entered into, the unemployment benefit system, may never come off it. And by keeping their toe in the workplace, it's great. Now, the other thing about furloughed workers, they're still under contract and they still accrue annual leave. So the minute all this madness stops, ideally, you'd be getting them back to work as if, business as usual. And that's the whole point.
Right. That's an interesting point about accruing annual leave. I wasn't sure about that. Yeah, so
yeah, they do.
If they're off for 3 months,
they're still under contract.
Yeah.
It's very different to having your employment terminated or being made redundant. And layoffs, as they're traditionally known as, are very, very common in manufacturing and in some services industries. There's a spike in production and then production falls off or an order gets cancelled. There's a lot of layoffs happen in that industry. And technically, you're not supposed to lay people off and furlough them if it's not in their contract of employment. But you can if you get agreement from the employees. And so far, employees are actually being very, very good about this. But you know, and you should try and get agreement, and otherwise you shouldn't be asking people to furlough. But trying to get agreement is good, you know, and people have the security of an income coming in. Otherwise, the country or the company could go down, and that's the end of it. You get nothing, and you've no job to come back to.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I'm really glad because people are actually going to have jobs to come back to in the main after all of this is over.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's, as I said, the most common. They're the most common questions I'm getting. No one else seems to be that worried about anything else. The other question I've been asked is people who've resigned and they're due to finish in this period. Their new jobs have kind of fallen away. And what should you do? Now, it's a tricky one because they have resigned. An awful lot of employers do want to do the right thing by them. I'm not encouraging any, you know, illegality or anything like that, but there's nothing stopping you re-engaging them for a few months if you want to, and deal with it that way. But you know, sure. I can have a private conversation with people.
Yeah, sure. What was your final point on keeping in touch?
It's very important when people are furloughed or not in work, even if they're off sick, to try and keep in touch with them. And I do think that, you know, there should be, try and use Zoom, Skype, telephone call, whatever you can, conference call. It's all out there. We can all do it from our phones these days. You should at least have a team meeting or a briefing at least once a week, because you know, they're still under contract to you. And even the people who are sick, just keep them up to date. Keep them aware of what's going on, you know. That's the main important thing, because this won't last hopefully very long, and we will all be going back to normal. But it's very important to communicate with everybody. Just don't leave them hanging. Yeah. Because I'm getting a lot of emails from really worried employees because no one's told them anything. And it's like, no, you've got to keep in touch with them. They might be off sick, they might be self-isolating, but you know, just at least give them a call, a Zoom meeting like we're doing here, anything like that. It doesn't have to be all day, every day, but it can be once or twice.
I've personally heard of some real horror stories of terrible leadership and communication through all this from big companies who are, you know, actively questioning people's value to the business, really putting people under fear of losing their jobs, asking for, you know, management information to show what they're doing, just general lack of communication or really poor communication.
I know, and I mean, listen, this sort of a thing brings out the worst and the best in people, doesn't it? Luckily, the sector I'm working in, which is the SME small business sector, the people are a lot more connected with their employees, I think, and I'm seeing it a lot more. So their employees mean much more to them, actually, quite frankly, and I'm not getting that much of a sense of it. But I too have read the horror stories in the newspaper, and I think, you know, this is shocking. You know, you've got big charismatic leaders on their islands in the Caribbean being quite crappy when they could actually do something about it, you know, multi-billionaires doing things. I just think no. But yet the guy whose business, his whole house could go down, everything is riding on this, tends to be the one or the gal who's communicating with their employees and trying their best to do the right thing in all of this. And I think that's a really good sign. Really good sign. And it's actually the small businesses and the entrepreneurs could show these other big guys a thing or two about their staff.
I think we'll see a shift after this as well. I think people are showing their real true colours, and I think that the market will probably react to that after this to put their money to the businesses that have done the right thing, as opposed to those that have lined their own pockets.
And also, sort of, I think the people who haven't been that affected by this, you know, their businesses are going to keep going, they can pay their staff because they've got contracts, all of that sort of thing. I think they're actually beginning to realise how lucky they are. And I'm getting a lot of that from even their staff. We realise we're really lucky. And sometimes we all need a wake-up call to realise how lucky we are. And, you know, I had another call from another guy going, they've never worked as hard in all their life. I'm like, why do you think? And he's like, well, I think they're worried that I might lay them off. And it's like, okay, you know, I think we all need to step back and be a bit grateful for what we've got. I know that's a bit Pollyanna-ish, but, you know, it's we're in strange times, and maybe we needed a wake-up call. It's one hell of a wake-up call to get, I grant you, but I think the bigger organisations, the ones that I've read about, have behaved disgracefully.
Disgracefully. Yeah, agree.
You know, those people who were made redundant last week are not entitled to this furlough payment. That's the crappy part, because they're now made redundant, and most of them probably didn't even get payoffs. And that's, you know, for the sake of a few days, they could have waited. And these big sort of, as I said, businesses, they've got the ear of the Chancellor. They know exactly what's going on. They're told weeks before the rest of us, and they did that. So I was just, you know, and that's the bad side of it. But the good side is, from our perspective, the small business market, in the main, people are doing the right thing by their employers and employees, and that's lovely to see.
Definitely. Okie dokie.
Well, so you know, if anyone wants to get in touch or anything, I'm happy to answer any questions, or they can get in touch by you, Mike. I'm happy with that. So
sure, great stuff. These 3 scenarios, do you think we've covered that already?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about furloughed workers. Do you want to go into the detail about that at all?
I think it's I think we've sort of covered it. I mean, what does furlough mean? It means you're laying them off because you've got no work for them to actually carry out. So that's the kind of definition. This is a bit different though, because you can claim, normally in layoff situations you can't actually claim that much, and it's usually for about a 6-week period, and you can claim like 2 weeks kind of furlough money. This is different. This is a whole different thing. It's called the Coronavirus Retention Scheme. Now, applying for it, that's what a lot of people are asking. So there's not a lot of detail on the website yet about how you can apply for it. I would imagine you can do it online at some point, but you know, they're still working on that. There is a number that I put on the slide that you can ring up and get the form, but do you know what? Good luck to you if you can get through. So, and the first payment, they're saying, but this is HMRC, not me, should be released at the end of April. Now, that mightn't be a lot of use to a lot of employers who have no money now, but coming out at the end of April, and I believe, you know, Mr. Bank managers aren't being very helpful in the situation either. That's the word out there. But so the first payments will come through at the end of April. There's not really a lot else to say, except, you know, if you're furloughing your workers, you can't get them to work on the days they're furloughed. You can't backdate it all from the 1st of March if they were actually working. It has to be from the day they stop working. And you just write them a very simple letter. I've got a copy of a letter if anybody wants it. Helen Fleet, I know, has a copy of a letter that she gives to her clients, if anyone wants that. Helen, I'm offering it up there. And, you know, that's all you need to do. And then you just stop them working from that day, and then keep in touch with them. Yeah. And really all there is. There's very little detail on this.
Yeah. A few questions.
Yeah, sorry. Normal layoff rules aren't really applying here. So sorry, Mike, you have a few questions?
No, I was going to say, you know, quite a few people that I've spoken to have been questioning how furloughing relates to a director of a company who pays themselves through PAYE, especially from salary.
Isn't it? Again, very little detail, and there's supposed to be some measures, I think, coming out today for the self-employed. But, you know, if you're a director of a company, you're also an employee, aren't you? I think. Most of us are. Exactly. As employees, and this is just my opinion, it may be completely different when the guidelines come out, so I have to caveat that. As an employee, you should be entitled to it, because the money your business has is very different to your own personal money. You pay yourself a wage out of that. And of course, a lot of us would pay ourselves, you know, a bit of wages and top it up with dividends. I wouldn't have thought dividends would be included in any of these kind of payments. So, you know, you could furlough yourself, but I suppose the argument is, as business owners, even what we're doing today is working in your business. Yeah. So you're not laid off. You're not sitting around on your couch watching Netflix. You are doing something with your business. So that could be the tricky grey area. Yeah, sure. Because technically when you're furloughed, you're not supposed to be doing anything. You have no work. Yeah, yeah. So it's such a blurry area at the moment, isn't it? Able to say anything specifically. Yeah, it might be that we all have to rely on, because we've all had, you know, assignments cancelled, projects cancelled, all of this sort of stuff. But it could be that we might be able to rely on the self-employed grant that's coming out. Who knows? But technically, you can furlough yourself, I think, if you're an employee of your own company, technically. But then you can't do any work. Yeah. And that includes even sitting down, getting your accounts up to date, doing stuff like this, sorting out your filing. That's not what you're technically not what you're supposed to do.
Sure. But, okay.
I think a bit of sense will prevail, and I think there will be leniency, because it's better than having the economy tanking and us all on the street claiming unemployment benefit.
Yeah, sure.
And without, and I don't want to second guess the guidelines; they're so scant. But yeah, maybe we could part furlough ourselves if we're allowed to do that. Who knows? Sorry, I'd love to be more specific.
Yeah, no. Hopefully there'll be some more clarity over the next week or so from the government.
Yeah.
A few questions outside the technicalities of furloughing, etc. Have any of your clients had any concerns around the remote working and how that's affecting their teams and their engagement and productivity and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I mean, they are worried about it, and they are worried that it might be forcing them into a long-term thing. An awful lot of my clients it's not suitable to homework all the time and flexible work, and they're trying.
Of clients in sectors where it's not really
appropriate. Exactly. And now they're forced into it, obviously, because of this situation. Is it working really well? In some cases, no. In fact, a lot of cases it's not, but they're willing to wear it because they're looking at it more long term. We've got to try and make this work, because rather than having our businesses go to the wall or no one doing anything at all. It is a tough one. I think they'd all prefer to be back in the office, doing what they're going to do. I think
it's difficult? It's difficult to base it on last week or a couple of weeks as well, isn't it? When everyone's kind of up in the air and anxious about what's happening and probably not in the best state of mind to be working anyway. Let's
not ever forget that there is a social aspect to going to work. Now, I work from home a lot. So do you, Mike. And if I'm doing it for a prolonged period of time, I do start to go a little bit stir crazy and a little bit kind of mad. I'm kind of, I want human kind of contact. So, I mean, I do have an office space somewhere else purely so I can get up and go to the office rather than at my kitchen table. And it's only a mile up the road. But, the human interaction, and actually an awful lot of things get done by people just meeting informally at the coffee point, at the water cooler. It's quite nice to go around to someone's desk, just have a quick chat and do it. That human interaction is, I just don't think you can underestimate it. Now, it's great to flexibly work, do not get me wrong. This crisis may well change the future of work forever. We just don't know. But it is proven difficult. This isn't easy for anybody. And I think productivity is still quite low as a result of it. People are really, really, really trying to make this work because of the unique circumstances we find ourselves in. And it may be that it becomes a lot easier. I just wish to God I had bought shares in Zoom 3 weeks ago. Yeah. I'd be a multi-millionaire. I think we all would be. I mean, I'm loving Zoom. I think it's great. But, and that sort of thing. For me personally, I've kind of learned things to do with technology that will stand me in good stead in the future, which I've never really considered up until now. But, and Zoom both personally and professionally is great. I think it will have an impact. I think it'll have an impact on the future. But, I think any return to normal would be very welcomed.
Yeah.
It's such a strange thing that's happened.
Yeah. I think it's showed a lot of businesses how they can work flexibly and how they can be better by using digital tools. But I think it's also revealed a lot to people about how important collaboration and face-to-face collaboration is to people. As a species, we thrive on working together, and I think that has it's a lot of business people I know who've sort of commented on the fact that they always thought they were going to have to move towards remote working or wanted to move towards remote working, but now thinking no, it needs to be a hybrid. We need to have
I agree.
have that collaboration face to face. because that's what gets the best work out of people and what they enjoy as well. We're sociable beings.
We do. And, you know, I'll tell you what I've missed the most. It's since I started my own business. I actually miss the Thursday nights going out. You know, where someone would just pop around at 4 o'clock and go, you know, do you fancy going around the corner for a quick one before you go home? Drink, that is, before you go home. And you're like, I missed that. I actually really do. And I still do. And it's a big part of your life that you miss, or going to lunch with somebody in the week and things like that. And that's just on a general level, being self-employed and working from home an awful lot myself. So, yeah, I do think it'll change things. It'll make people more receptive to it. But I do think that, you know, face-to-face office, there's nothing beats it, really. Yeah. You're all in one spot at the one time, being.
Have you got any advice to business owners who want to try and keep that engagement with their teams, but from a virtual perspective?
Well, it's a bit like all of us, really. They're just going to have to use, I think, you know, Zoom, Teams, all of this has to come back into play. People, you should really see each other. It's a face-to-face thing. Keep in touch.
Try and schedule some social activities and
schedule things. Well, yeah. Don't just leave it sort of hanging, and that's the worst thing. People don't like not to be communicated to, and I think if anything, this will that's hopefully the lessons we're going to draw from this. At least once or twice a week, if not every day. People, you know, I know of companies even before this happened, at 9 o'clock every morning they've got a meeting on Teams, regardless of who's in the office or who isn't. So you can be anywhere you want and you're in that office, and it's a quick 10-minute round robin catch up. What's the harm in doing that?
Yeah, definitely.
And it keeps everyone engaged, and everyone knows what they're doing, and you know, everyone knows what they should be doing throughout the day, and they know what everyone else is doing too.
I've seen some great examples from clients who are doing just that from a business perspective, keeping the momentum with regular catch-ups, sharing regular updates on where the business is at, and rather than having people at home wondering what the hell's going on.
Exactly,
and that's being really proactive. But then also from a social aspect as well, and generating that morale. I've seen so many different things, you know, like online team pub quizzes, bingo, just social catch-ups, just stuff to keep that community spirit going.
And I think it's really, really, really important, because, you know, we're all stuck alone in our homes. You know, you might be with your family and stuff, but we're all just stuck in our own little kind of boxes now, and that is really, really, really important. I mean, even today, I was quite excited that this was happening because, you know, it won't be long before we all start getting cabin fever. You know, it's all terribly exciting and all a bit, you know, novel for the last few days. But if we have, 6 more weeks of this, we'll be climbing the walls.
Yeah.
And you're also uncertain. You don't know what's happened. Will I have a job to go back to? Whatever, you know, what's going on? And that's, you know, it's important to keep in touch and keep everyone, even if the news is bad, tell people, because then you're involved in them and there might be a solution.
Yeah. We talked a lot around, you know, dealing with the current crisis and dealing with people who are remote working and stuff like that. But we're going to come to a point where we need to prepare to crack on and go back to work. And prepare for cracking on with business again. So have you got any advice on what business people should be doing right now or over the next couple of months, just to prepare themselves for that moment when we're going to have to sort of ramp up again, and so we can take that opportunity?
I mean, I can only go from my own experience, really. Just don't fall over and die over this. You know, keep going, really. I'm in touch now with all of my clients, and even clients I didn't have prospective pitches and stuff. You just think, I just want to help, and if I can do anything, that's fine. So you're just doing that, you know, keeping in touch with them yourself, because normal life will resume, and I think it'll probably happen quicker than we're all realizing. And actually, it could actually take off again, because I think we're all really keen to just get going again. So it could be a huge period of creativity, prosperity, whatever after this. There could be, because everyone's so keen to get going, because it's actually been very traumatic and very sudden.
Yes.
And I just think if we can plan, you take this opportunity to plan, pave the way, think about new things we could do, you know, and I think we should all have, even the smallest of us, a crisis plan going forward, because no one was prepared for this. I mean, I myself was out buying Zoom subscriptions the other day because I didn't realise that you couldn't have more than 2 people on the call at any one time. You know, I mean, we all should have a disaster recovery plan. We should all have a crisis plan, you know, and that's it. So we're prepared for the next big thing that happens. And that
exactly. I think a lot of people are, you know, maybe think about, oh, what if there's a little bit of a slow couple of months, but they don't think about, oh my God, what if business actually stops tomorrow, which is what just happened.
I know. Oh, none of us have thought about that. Well, we never thought it was going to happen. I mean, I didn't think of this in my wildest dreams. Did you?
Yeah.
That's the space of a fortnight. With all the work,
I see it coming, but I didn't ever imagine it'll be as rapid as it has this week. It's been ridiculous. Yeah,
and that is quite traumatic, and that is quite scary. So, you know, that's what we all need to kind of take on board. So
yeah, cool. Great message to finish on. Anything else you want to share, or you finished?
I'm finished actually, Mike, but if anybody needs anything, they can either go through you or me, and you know, I'm happy to help.
Great stuff. For those who need an extra bit of extra support, just want to chat about any of this sort of stuff, Olga's details are all there, and mine there too. But hope you found this useful, and thanks, Olga, for your time.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you very much.
Okay. See ya. Bye.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.